The Salem Witch Trials, they've captivated us for centuries. Why? It's more than just a historical event, isn't it? It feels like it speaks to something deeper, something about ourselves.
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. It's those primal fears that get to us, I think. Fear of the unknown, fear of social upheaval, and ultimately fear of each other.
You're right, it's that fear of the other that seems to run through so much of history.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's set the scene here. We're talking 1692, Salem Village, a deeply religious community, Puritan beliefs,
Right.
where that line between natural and supernatural was, well, let's just say it was blurry at
To
best.
say the least, yeah.
So, was there one single cause for the Salem witch trials, or was it more complicated than that?
You know, that's the million-dollar question. It's been debated for centuries. It wasn't just one thing. Think of it as a perfect storm. You've got social anxieties, religious fervor, and good old-fashioned individual motivations all swirling together.
So, you've got this community primed for, well, for something to happen, and then you've got these strange occurrences.
Yeah, these bizarre afflictions, things that seem to defy any kind of explanation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What do you mean by afflictions?
Well, it all started with these two young girls, Betty Paris and Abigail Williams.
Okay.
They started having these fits, screaming, contorting their bodies, even hiding under furniture.
Hiding under furniture. Wow, that's specific. What else? What were their symptoms?
They also described feeling like they were being pricked by pins, like invisible needles tormenting them. And maybe the most important detail, a doctor examined them, couldn't find any physical cause for these ailments.
Okay, so now you've got a community steeped in Puritan beliefs where the devil is a very real threat, and you've got these unexplainable events. I can see where this is going.
Right. With no earthly explanation, the supernatural, specifically witchcraft, became the go-to theory.
Makes sense. So, how did they go about identifying the witch or witches responsible? I've read about some pretty unique methods.
Oh, yeah. They used some methods that, well, today we'd consider them pretty out there, right?
Right.
But back then, deadly serious business. One was this thing called the touch test.
Okay.
So an accused woman would be forced to touch the afflicted girl. And if the girl's fit subsided, that was considered proof of guilt.
That's a little convenient, don't you think? Was there any evidence that this touch test actually worked?
None whatsoever.
Okay, but it gets even weirder, right? Tell me about this witch cake.
Oh, yeah. The witch cake.
I've got to hear this.
So picture this. They bake a cake using rye meal and, get this, the afflicted girl's urine.
No way.
Then this cake would be fed to a dog.
Okay.
And the belief. The witch responsible for the girl's affliction would experience excruciating pain as the dog was eating the cake.
Oh my gosh. So, using these diagnostic tools, so to speak, who were the first to be accused?
The first three? Sarah Good, a homeless woman. Sarah Osborne, known for rarely attending church. And Tituba, an enslaved woman from Barbados.
Their social standing probably didn't help their case, did it?
You got it. Sarah Good, marginalized, impoverished, easy scapegoat. Sarah Osborne, seen as an outsider because she didn't go to church regularly, vulnerable. And then Tituba, an enslaved woman, already at the bottom rung of society. Her voice, her perspective, easily dismissed.
It's just heartbreaking how quickly these women were judged and condemned based on their social standing, not on any actual evidence.
You said it. It really exposes the power dynamics in Salem Village, doesn't it? This wasn't just about witchcraft. It was about social tensions, anxiety about outsiders, and taking advantage of the people who were already vulnerable.
A story as old as time, sadly. So the accusations didn't end there, did they? What happened next? Did people start questioning these bizarre methods and these accusations?
Unfortunately, no. It actually got worse. Those accusations, they spread like wildfire.
How? How did it spread so quickly? A whole community gripped by fear. That's hard to imagine.
There was this one incident really amplified the hysteria. A woman dared to question the girl's claims. Guess what happened?
She got accused.
Bingo. Accused of witchcraft herself.
So you couldn't even express doubt. That's scary.
Right. It just goes to show you, fear and paranoia, they can silence any kind of dissent. And critical thinking. Forget about it.
Okay.
Becomes dangerous.
This is where it starts to feel a little too relevant, doesn't it? Even today, you see how fear and groupthink can shut down any kind of healthy skepticism.
Exactly. And it wasn't even just about challenging the girls directly. Another woman was targeted because of her clothing. She wore black, which was seen as odd and therefore suspicious.
It's mind-blowing how the most mundane details could be twisted into evidence of witchcraft. So fear is gripping the community. What did they do? How did they uncover more evidence.
They started searching homes, looking for anything that could be considered incriminating. And you know what? It often backfired, especially for women who had healing herbs and ointments. Think midwives, caregivers.
Wait, so the people who were actually trying to help others, the ones with knowledge of traditional remedies, they became targets?
Sadly, yes, their helpfulness twisted into evidence of dark magic. Good intentions gone wrong, in a big way.
Wow. So what happened once someone was formally accused? What did that trial process even look like?
Well, let's just say fair wouldn't be the word I'd use.
Okay.
The trials lacked a lot of the safeguards we take for granted today, right?
Right.
Due process, out the window.
Yeah.
And the standards of evidence, let's just say, very questionable.
So what kind of evidence did they use? Was it eyewitness accounts? Physical proof?
There were attempts to gather physical evidence, sure, but the court really relied on something called spectral evidence.
Spectral evidence. Okay, you've lost me. What is that?
So imagine this.
Yeah.
Someone testifies that they saw the accused person's spirit, their specter, tormenting them.
Like in a dream.
Yes, exactly, in a dream. Or even harming someone else in the real world, but invisibly. That's spectral evidence.
So you're telling me that dreams and visions were considered legitimate evidence in court?
Yep. And it makes sense in their worldview, right? They believed in the spirit world, it was real to them. So spectral evidence carried a lot of weight.
It's kind of scary to think about how our beliefs can shape our perception of reality. But even with spectral evidence, surely some people had doubts about the accusations, right?
There were a few brave souls who spoke out.
Right.
Reverend John Hale, for instance. At first he supported the trials, but then as things got out of hand,
Yeah.
he started to question the whole thing. The reliance on spectral evidence, whether the accusations were even true.
So even in this climate of fear, there were voices of reason, people who saw that something was seriously wrong.
Definitely. But their voices were often drowned out by, well, the hysteria. The trials went on, and the consequences were devastating.
Yeah.
14 women and 5 men were hanged, convicted of witchcraft.
Yeah.
All based on flimsy evidence and a very questionable legal process.
It's a stark reminder of how easily justice can be twisted, especially when a community is ruled by fear. Let's circle back to some of those theories we discussed earlier. Was mass hysteria the only explanation for what happened in Salem?
And fans hysteria was a big part of it, no doubt.
Yeah.
But it doesn't explain everything. Remember those family feuds we talked about?
Yeah.
Some people think that some folks use those witchcraft accusations to, settle scores, get ahead in the community.
So you're saying the witch trials were a way to exploit the situation, to gain power. That's pretty dark.
It is dark, yeah.
Yeah.
But it happens. Power struggles and scapegoating the vulnerable, that's a tale as old as time.
It is. And then there's that ergotism theory, the biological angle.
Right.
Can you remind us what ergotism is and how it could have played a role in Salem?
Sure. Ergotism is a kind of poisoning you get it from eating moldy rye.
Okay.
And the fungus that grows on the rye, it has this psychoactive substance. It can cause hallucinations, convulsions, all kinds of neurological symptoms.
So is it possible those girls who started this whole thing, were they actually suffering from ergotism? Their symptoms were just, misinterpreted as witchcraft?
Exactly. And rye bread, it was a staple food in Salem. There's even evidence suggesting that the weather in the years leading up to the trials was perfect for that ergot fungus to grow.
That's really interesting. Is there any historical proof to back up the ergotism theory? Did other communities experience similar, outbreaks of strange behavior?
There are definitely documented cases of ergotism in Europe during that time, and some historians think it could have happened in colonial America too. But as for definitive proof that it was the culprit in Salem, no.
So it's kind of like a historical mystery novel, right? We've got all these clues, bits of evidence, but the full picture, we may never know for sure. And then there's that theory that the girls themselves were, manipulating the situation. Could it be that they were enjoying the attention, the power their accusations brought them?
That's a possibility you can't rule out. Even back then, kids, teenagers, they crave attention, they want power. Maybe they started to believe their own stories, or maybe they were deliberately making stuff up, who knows?
It's hard to imagine, but history is full of people doing crazy things. So we have all these factors. Mass hysteria, personal vendettas, maybe ergotism, and the girls, potentially being manipulative. Do historians have a favorite theory? A most likely explanation?
It's tough to say. There probably isn't one single factor that explains it all. Most historians think it was a combination of things, social factors, psychology, maybe even the environment. It all came together to create this this perfect storm.
The more we dig into it, the more complex it gets.
Yep.
But what happened after the trials ended? Did the community ever admit that they were wrong?
Well, the trials officially ended in 1693.
Okay.
And within a few years, there was this feeling of regret, you know? People wanted to make things right, to make amends for the injustices.
So they didn't just pretend it never happened. They actually tried to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah. In 1697, the General Court of Massachusetts, they declared a day of fasting and soul searching.
Wow.
It was to acknowledge the mistakes of the witch trials. They even offered financial compensation to the families of the people who had been wrongly accused and convicted.
That's good. At least they tried to right their wrongs. But the legacy of the Salem Witch Trials goes beyond those few years, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Salem has become synonymous with witch hunts, with mass hysteria. It's a cautionary tale. It shows us how fragile reason can be, and it reveals the dark side of human nature.
It really makes you think, what if the Salem Witch Trials were happening today?
Oh, that's a good question.
What would it look like? What would those accusations be? What kind of anxieties, what power struggles would be fueling it all?
Well, we probably wouldn't be accusing people of witchcraft literally. Right.
Right.
But those basic dynamics, the fear, the scapegoating, the desire for control, they're still around.
So instead of witches, who would be the targets?
It's hard to say for sure. But think about what makes us anxious today. Technology changing so fast, the economy, politics, all that creates a breeding ground for fear and suspicion.
So instead of witchcraft, maybe it'd be like accusing people of spreading misinformation or being disloyal to an ideology or going against the established order.
Yeah, something like that. The language might change, the specific accusations might be different, but those underlying human impulses, they'd probably be the same.
That's a scary thought. The Salem Witch Trials, they're not just some event from the past. They're a warning about what happens when fear takes over and how easily reason can disappear when you've got social pressure.
It's a reminder to be careful, to question what we hear, and to resist that urge to demonize people who are different, who have different beliefs. We need to think critically about the information we're bombarded with every day and the stories we tell ourselves.
It's a call to be better, to learn from the past, and try to create a world that's more just and compassionate. What about you? What stands out to you about the Salem Witch Trials? What lessons do you think we can apply today in our own lives, in society? We want to hear from you. Let us know what you think. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching for the truth, keep diving deep,